Hello everyone, how's it going, and welcome to today's Wild Rift video. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at the Colossus Galio. Galio is a tanky anti-mage champion that can be played in the mid lane or down in the support role. Galio does very well against most champions that deal magic damage thanks to his second ability, Shield of Durand. When playing Galio in the mid lane, he has very good wave clear, which allows him to push the enemy champions under the tower and allows you to roam around the map and make plays with his ultimate and third ability, Justice Punch. Taking a quick look at the build with Galio. When playing Galio in the mid lane, you want to build items that give you a lot of ability power, so all of your abilities can deal more damage, but also go for some tank stats as well, because Galio is a melee champion, so you will be quite vulnerable to taking a lot of damage. So for the first item, we go for Rod of Ages. Gives us a little bit of maximum health, a lot of ability power, and a little bit of maximum mana. The great thing is, it's a veteran passive as well, so you need to get this item as soon as possible. That means it can start stacking straight away, and at maximum stacks you gain an extra 200 health, an extra 100 mana, and extra 60 ability power. So the scaling of this item is very strong. For the second item, Rabadon's Death Cap gives us a lot of ability power and increases our overall ability power by 40%. For the boots, most of the time you could just go for defensive boots, so either Mercury Treads or Plated Steel Caps. Both of these are very useful. And as for the boots enchantment, Stasis is always a great option, but you can actually go for the Mercury Glory enchant as well to give you a little bit of extra movement speed, so you can go towards enemy champions and land your taunt or land your knock up a lot easier. For the next item, we have Void Staff. Again, another item that gives us a lot of ability power and gives us that percentage magic penetration, so we can penetrate basically through any magic resist that the enemy champions are dealing. Infinity Orb, a great item for when playing Galio in the mid lane, because with Galio mid lane you want to burst enemy champions as quick as possible, and Infinity Orb allows you to do that because the abilities and empowered attacks critically strike for 20% bonus damage against enemies that are low on HP. So very great item for Galio, and also gives us a lot of ability power, movement speed, and flat magic penetration. And then for last item, we have Awakened Soul Stealer. Again, another item that gives us a little bit of maximum health, ability power, and ability haste. The Soul Flare passive is great as well. Takedowns on enemy champions within a few seconds of dealing damage to them reduces the remaining cooldowns of your abilities by 25%. So if you burst an enemy champion down within 3 seconds, which is very doable on Galio, all of your abilities will go on a 25% less cooldown, which is very helpful. There are some other options you can go for, like Morella Nomicon, Banshee's Veil, and Crystalline Reflector. All these items are very good in certain situations. As for the runes, we have Electrocute. Very easy to proc Electrocute on Galio. If you land your knock up or you land your taunt, your second ability, then you can very easily combo your other abilities and auto attacks to deal 3 instances of separate attacks or abilities, and then you'll be able to deal that little bit of extra damage with Electrocute. Weakness, as I just mentioned, you got a knock up, you got a taunt as well with your second ability. You also have a knock up with your ultimate. If you land these on any of the enemy champions, that champion will take 5% more damage in the following 5 seconds, so it gives Galio and your team a little bit of extra damage. Bow Planting is really good when you take damage from an enemy champion. The current and next 3 champion attacks or abilities you will take reduced damage. So when you're trying to walk up, when you're trying to land your knock up or land your taunt, if you do get focus, then in first instances of damage you will basically take reduced damage, which is really helpful. And then for the last rune, we have Hunter Genius to give us a little bit of extra ability haste, so we can use our abilities more often. You get a little bit of ability haste at the start of the game, and every single time you get a unique takedown, you gain 3 more ability haste. And as for the summer spells, we have Flash and we have Ignite. Flash is really helpful as it combos with a lot of your abilities, and Ignite is if you want to play very aggressive and try and get that early advantage in the laning phase. So that's everything for the build with Galio. Let's take a look at the abilities. First up, let's take a look at Galio's passive, which is Colossal Smash. All it does is it enhances Galio's next attack to deal magic damage to nearby enemies. So it's not really too much to this passive. I only have really one tip for it. It's kind of like a rhythm passive in a way. So as you can see, when you auto attack, you just basically do AoE damage, and you can see when when your fists start to glow, and also when you hear that sound, that means your passive is up and available again. So always keeping your ear out for that sound, and then you know your passive is up and available. But as I mentioned, it's kind of like a rhythm technique with this passive. So when you auto attack, you have enough time to auto attack 3 times in between, and then you can auto attack with your passive again. So if you're just auto attacking normally like this, you will always have time to auto attack 3 times, and then your passive will be up and available. But this passive is really good for guaranteed extra damage when you're landing crowd control, but also very good for wave clearing mid lane as well, so you can look to try and roam around the map. For Galio's first ability, we have Winds of War, which fires 2 wind blasts that deal magic damage and converge into a tornado. And them 2 wind blasts are like an arch, and them 2 arches, you have 2 projectiles that go into one to make that tornado. And the tornado deals magic damage equal to percentage of the target's maximum health over a few seconds. Now, as I mentioned, it has 2 basically projectiles. You can see the wind blast on either side, and you can see the area of the tornado with the circle. Now, it's really important with this ability that you understand that sometimes you're not going to be able to hit the champion that's right in front of you if you're trying to go for like a long range, you know, trying to use your first ability at long range. As you can see, because it deals damage in an arch, I'm not actually dealing damage to this target dummy in front of me. I'm only actually dealing damage to the 2 target dummies at the side, and then one at the back is taking the tornado damage. So it's really important most of the time to actually manually aim this ability to make sure that you get full benefit of the percentage damage. As you can see, you can do it in short range, or you can also do it in long range. But also a really cool tip with this first ability as well is that because your 2 arches are a little bit different, you can actually use your arches to your benefit. So like, for example, here, if I have like minions, I can step to the side, and instead of trying to deal, you know, the damage with the tornado, I can actually deal damage to minions using the 2 wind blasts at either side. So you can try and position it correctly to do the 2 instances of damage with the wind blast, and then also the tornado damage can be dealt to the melee minions behind. So it makes your wave clear a lot quicker. One of the other main things with Galio's first ability is making full benefit of your tornado damage, and that's the instance at the end, a little bit of tornado damage. And you can do a little basic combo to guarantee that you're going to deal the full damage with your first ability. So all you do is you hold your second ability down, you auto attack first ability, and then use your third ability. That means by the time the duration ends, the enemy champions will still be knocked up by your third ability, and as you can see, when it's all finished, your first ability will end. So it gives you the full damage output of your first ability. For Galio's second ability, we have Shield of Durand. It has a passive which makes Galio a very strong anti-mage champion. Every 12 seconds upon taking damage, Galio gains a shield that absorbs magic damage for a few seconds. This makes Galio really good against like any AP assassins or really any AP mages, because you're not going to get poked down as much as other champions. It also has an active as well. When you hold the ability, you enter a defense stance, slowing himself by 15% for a few seconds, but you also take reduced magic damage and reduce physical damage whilst charging your Shield of Durand. And then when you release the ability, you deal magic damage and taunt all nearby enemies for a few seconds, depending on how long you hold your ability. So you saw it a little bit in the ability before, but as I hold the ability, as you can see, I'm slowed. I'm also going to take reduced damage every time, and you can still see by the taunt duration, if I just tap this ability, you can see that the taunted target dummy is only taunted for like 0.5 seconds. But if I hold the ability, the target dummy is going to get taunted even longer. So it's actually important to make sure that you try and fully charge your second ability, Shield of Durand, to try and make full benefit of the taunt. And that means that if you land the full duration, you can then use your other abilities and combo your knock up to deal that huge amount of burst damage. For Galio's third ability, we have Justice Punch, which allows Galio to dash forward until he hits an enemy or terrain, dealing magic damage to enemies and knocking them up for just under a second. Now, there's a few little tips and tricks I have for this ability. Now, this ability is really interesting because it says in the description that Galio dashes forward, but there's an important part. Galio actually dashes backwards before he dashes forwards. So when I use this ability, you can see there's a little bit of a projectile behind me. So Galio actually dashes backwards before he dashes forwards. There's a few little things that you can do with that. You can use your third ability backwards. So say, for example, you're trying to combo this target dummy. You can actually use your third ability backwards instead of using it forward. And it actually reduces the time of the dash and actually guarantees a knock up quicker. So as you can see, I dash backwards. And as you can see, even though I'm in front of the target dummy, because Galio dashes backwards first, it means that I'm basically always on the target dummy. If I do it the other way, then it's actually going to take a longer amount of time to land a knock up because Galio has to dash backwards first before he dashes forward. So that's really, really important. You can actually use this to your advantage up against walls as well. So say, for example, you're up against a wall, Galio can't actually dash backwards. There's no way that he could dash backwards. So it basically means that you're just going to dash forward straight away, and it kind of cancels the animation of you dashing backwards like you would normally see there. It's very, very small and you barely notice the difference, but that sometimes can be the difference between knocking up someone and maybe not knocking up someone. And also another tip as well is you can use your third ability with flash. This is very, very difficult to execute, and it will take maybe a little bit of time because you basically need to flash in the middle of when he's dashing forward. So you don't want to do it when you're dashing backwards, but whilst you're in the animation of dashing forward. So as you're dashing forward, when you're in the middle of the animation, as you can see, I was a bit too far there. When you're in the middle of the animation, you just do this, and as you can see, you can dash forward to knock someone up. I use this combo a lot. So use third ability, and when you're in the middle of using it, or in the middle of dashing forward, then you can use your flash to extend the distance. What combo I really like to do is I like to E-flash into auto attack, then taunt, and then use my first ability, which is a really, really cool combo to use, and it really catches people off guard. And last but by no means least, we have Galio's ultimate, which is Hero's Entrance. You gain Galio's second ability, Shield of Durant's passive shield, for a few seconds to all allied champions near the target that you have decided to position your landing spot on. Very, very good against any AP champions. After a few seconds, Galio arrives at the location, dealing magic damage and knocking every single champion up. So as you can see, it's a very, very big ultimate that basically, if you're playing in the mid lane, then all you have to do is walk up to here, like just to this bush, and you can ulti all the way up to the top lane. Same here, you can ulti all the way down to the dragon pit or the baron pit at any point. So it's always good to keep an eye out on your minimap. When you use this ability, you have to make sure you target the right champion as well to make sure that you're not mispositioning at all. But when you use it, as you can see in the small picture-in-picture, Galio is able to just charge up, and when Galio charges up, he then goes up into the sky, becomes invulnerable, and then slams down, giving all your teammates that magic shield that are nearby, and also knocking up nearby enemy champions. So you can use your ultimate and then use this knock up to your benefit to then knock up again with your third ability, and then combo all of your other abilities on top of that. So a very, very good team fight ultimate that you should use to your benefit whenever up and available. There are many different combos that you can use for Galio, but I have a few here and some of my best combos that I always use in a game when I'm playing Galio. The first one, in my opinion, is the best combo that you can use for Galio. This is using your third ability first as a knock-up, which can be sometimes hard to hit, but if you are in close enough range, then you can use this as a gap closer. So all you do is you use your third ability, and then when you use your third ability knock up, use your taunt, auto attack, and then use your first ability. This will give you a high amount of burst damage and is really, really good for ganking or gap closing whenever possible. But if you're not close enough to using your third ability, then you can start by using your second ability. Or if you're too far away, or if you don't have a confidence in landing your third ability, you could do this. So say, for example, you have flash up available, you can use this with flash. But what you want to do is charge your second ability, auto attack, use your third ability, and then use your first ability. This means that you, even when the duration ends of the taunt, you can knock someone up with your third ability, but you're also making full benefit of the passive damage as well, that extra bonus damage. And as you see, that full combo damage did 4,000 damage, which is a lot of burst damage to any enemy champion. Now let's take a look at the skill order with Galio. At level 1, you always want to go for your first ability. This first ability is so important in the early game for both poking down enemy champions, but also for wave clear. As Galio, you always want to get wave clear control in the mid lane, and your first ability is the best option for that. Now, for your second ability, it's kind of two options. If you want to play aggressive, then you can go for your third ability and maybe look for a quick electrocute proc by using your knocker, or you can go for your second ability. I normally like to go for my second ability if I'm against any mage champions or any melee champions. This means that if that melee champion walks up to try and last hit a minion, you can use your taunt from your second ability, your first ability, and your auto attack to easily proc electrocute and do a quick burst of magic damage. Then you want to make sure you go for your third ability, so you have all abilities available, and then maxing the first ability you want to max is your first ability. This is pretty self-explanatory. Has the most amount of damage, has the best amount of wave clear. It's your main damage source for Galio, so it's obvious that you always want to go for that. Then you actually want to go for your second ability, and then you want to go for your third ability. Now, the reason why you go for your second ability is, as you can see here, the cooldown is reduced by quite a lot. You get that huge massive magic damage reduction and also physical damage reduction. Also, you get the shield and the base damage goes up. So it's important to go for your second ability instead of your third ability, because as you can see, even though base damage goes up by a lot, sometimes your third ability is used as mobility, and the cooldown doesn't really go down by that much. But that's everything that I wanted to show you with this Galio guide. Now I'm going to show you all a gameplay. It's a really, really awesome gameplay. So hopefully you all stay tuned, and I'll be telling you all tips and tricks when playing Galio in game. So I'll see you all in just a second. All right, on to the gameplay we go with Galio. This is a really, really wild game of Galio, and one of my best games that I've had with Galio. It's a little bit old. It's from about a few months ago, but it's still a very, very good game to show you all the benefits of playing Galio. Now, I'm in a little bit of a bad matchup here in the mid lane. You can see that I actually start Ruby Crystal with Galio. This is really important to start Ruby Crystal. The main reason why you want to start Ruby Crystal is because it has the best base stats in the early game. Getting that little bit of extra health can help you out a lot when trading, and especially because I'm in a melee versus range matchup, I want that little bit of extra base health to help me out when trading and help me out when wave clearing as well. So as you can see, I'm gonna get I'm struggling a little bit, even though Galio has really, really good wave clear. Akshan also has really, really good wave clear. So you're gonna be under a little bit of trouble here with Galio. As you can see, I think Akshan's roaming already around the map, as he always does. As you can see, you can use Galio's abilities very effectively to wave clear quite a lot. As you can see, Akshan was trying to roam. I think it was probably in towards the top side. That's also what Akshan could do very, very well. It actually roams a lot better than Galio in the early game because of his invisibility. As you can see, at the moment, I'm just using my abilities at range. I know the Xin Zhao, the enemy jungler, is in the top side of the map, so I'm just hovering around the bot side where my Rammus is. So if Xin Zhao does look for a gank, then Rammus can look to try and counter gank. And Xin Zhao is probably up in the top side. Yeah, as you can see, he was in the top side the whole time. That was why I was hovering towards the bottom side of the bush. That's really, really important when playing mid lane, is understanding where the enemy jungler is and where to position around the map. So I'm just going to push this lane in and try and look to roam, because I can see that Akshan and Xin Zhao both roamed up into the top side. They have vision of me. My enemy team is pretty low, but hopefully I can maybe come and try and turn this around. I go straight onto the Thresh here. I burst him down with Electrocute. I ignite a little bit onto Lucian just to back him off a little bit. So not really the best of trades, because my enemy team got caught. But I think the big thing to note here is that I pushed the mid lane before I actually tried to roam. And I think that's the big thing, as I kind of messed up a little bit there. I should have taunted. I completely messed up. Yeah, it's my bad. As you can see, I was a little bit mad about that. It was my mistake in the end. I shouldn't have done that. I should have just, yeah, as you can see, my bad. I should have taunted, or I should have just backed off completely. No need for me to go in there. A little bit limit testing happening. But as I mentioned, the big thing when roaming with Galio, or roaming with any champion really, is that you always want to make sure you have mid lane priority and you have mid lane pushed in. And it's a big thing to note for junglers as well, because there's always this big thing with junglers is like, oh, why is my mid lane not roaming? Why is my bot lane not roaming? That's because you get so much experience and gold from minions in this game that making sure that you push the minion wave in, or making sure that minion wave is not under tower, is super, super important. As you can see, Akshan is bullying me pretty hard this game, and it's a really, really bad matchup, because obviously Galio's really good against anti-magic damage, but As you can see, I just have to sit back and just relax here. Rammus is trying to look into mid lane. But yeah, as a jungler, oh, that was a really, really good Ashe arrow. As you can see, the knock up into the taunt, into our first ability. And there we go. Really, really nice Ashe arrow. And we got the shutdown already in the early game, which is pretty good as well. So as you can see, I'm just going to push this wave in. The enemy team loses the cannon minion as well, or the enemy Akshan loses the cannon minion. I'm just going to quickly push this wave as fast as possible, and then I'm going to look to go back to base and finish my Rod of Ages. So yeah, if you're a jungler and if you're looking to try and contest with Scuttle Crab, or you're looking to try and trade early on, then always keep an eye on the minion waves where you're trying to roam. So whether that be the mid, the top side, then you have to look at the bot lane, or the top lane or anything like that. Or if you're going to the bottom scuttle, then have a look at the mid lane and have a look at that lane's positioning to see if they're in a good enough spot to be able to roam and help you with the Scuttle Crab. As you can see, Galio, Akshan, sorry, is roaming again. I'm actually going to use my ultimate here to try and save the Rammus. Really, really nice Ashe arrow as well. And as you can see, we comboed everything together here. The Ashe arrow into the Galio knock up. We actually saved the Rammus in the end as well. Which is really, really nice. And that's the cool thing about Galio, is that even if you are against some champions that have a lot of good roaming, as you can see, Akshan kind of messed up a little bit there. If you're against good champions that are good at roaming, you can always use your ultimate to counter roam. Again, I got mid lane priority. I was able to push the mid lane. So as you can see at the moment in the mini map, the mid wave is pushed in. That means Akshan's going to lose more gold. He's going to lose more experience because he roamed straight away as he came out of base. He didn't go to the mid lane and he didn't prioritize getting the mid lane priority. So as you can see, a lot of minions that he's losing. I think he lost like a whole wave of minions, maybe a wave and a half because of the tower. So really, really important to keep that in mind. But yeah, as you can see, you can use your Galio ultimate to kind of counter roam every single time. I sometimes get lucidity boots. I think it's okay sometimes if you just want to play really, really aggressive, and if you're ahead, which I am this game. I'm very, very far ahead this game. So I think it's very, very nice to go for lucidity boots. I've realized I've actually missed a lot of minions this game. I have missed a lot of minions this game. You can see when I'm clearing the mid lane as well, that I'm always stepping to the side, and that's something I was explaining in the abilities breakdown, is if you step to the side, then you can actually use the two wind blasts at either side to deal damage to the melee minions, and that means you can clear the mid lane wave even quicker, and that allows me to roam around and help my team with the dragon. Enemy team does trade it with the Rift Herald though. As you can see, this Akshan cannot move. Rammus taunt into Ashe ulti, into Galio knockup, into Galio taunt. That Akshan is not having a fun time at all. And you can see Thresh is trying to look for the roam here. You can see that I'm just charging up my taunt, so I'm able to get the biggest taunt possible. I use my first ability. I use my knock up as well with my ignite, and I'm able to do enough to kill the Thresh. Unfortunately, my Rammus did get caught out. There was no point me using my ultimate there because it gives him a magic shield, and Zinshao does AD damage anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much. As you can see, all it needs is one first ability, one passive auto attack, and maybe a few more auto attacks, and you can easily clear the mid wave with Galio. And again, I'm pushing in the mid wave, and again, look, Akshan is bot lane. He's trying to roam around. He's trying to get some kills. It looks like he is going to get a kill here onto Yasuo, which he does. He's getting kills, but he's losing a lot of XP in the mid lane. He's losing a lot of farm in the mid wave, and that's one thing, is that yes, you can get a lot of kills, but the important thing is being able to get a lot of gold and get a lot of experience from using the minions. So I'm trying to save my Ashe here. Unfortunately, it's not enough to save the Ashe. The Ashe did flash away to safety, so it is enough for the Ashe to escape with that flash. But I wasn't able to land my taunt because he was able to flash away. I think that's always what's guaranteed though with Galio, is that every time you use your taunt, you're always guaranteed to try and use your second bit. You always guaranteed that the enemy team has to use flash to get away. If they don't have a flash, then they're pretty much going to get CC'd for a good few seconds with your taunt and your knock up. As you can see, I tried to use my third ability with my flash. I wasn't able to land the knock up. I was able to get close enough to deal enough damage, so Akali couldn't use her ultimate or her dashes to try and escape away. So we're in a pretty good spot this game. 6-1 and 2 at the moment, 8 minutes into the game. We already had our Rod of Ages completed, so that's going to be scaling up very, very quickly. Xin Zhao still has the Rift Tail, so he's going to be using that in mid lane. One tricky thing with the third ability as well, which I didn't really mention in the ability breakdown, but when you're trying to escape with your third ability, you have to really bear in mind that you're going to be dashing backwards first before you dash forward. So if an enemy champion is really close to you, and if you're looking to try and escape with your third ability, most of the time it's not going to work. Because you dash backwards, most of the time you're just going to hit that enemy champion, and there's, you know, you're not going to really be able to do anything else. You're actually just going to get closer to the enemy champions rather than further away to get away to safety. Basically, I got the mid lane pushed in. Rammus is trying to get this action. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to. There is an Akali here as well. So as you can see, I'm using my taunt to try and save the save the Rammus. And as you can see, the taunt, the max duration taunt with the knockup with the third ability and the burst as well from both the Nami and my first ability is enough to take down the Akali. The Akali was trying to look for the flank and trying to look to try and take down the Rammus, but in the end, it couldn't do anything because of how much burst damage I deal. Unfortunately, I didn't really do well there. The Nami did take down the Akshan, so I was able to do a little bit, but unfortunately, I did go down myself, which was a little bit of a mistake on my part. Again, when you're dashing forwards, you always have to be careful because there's always points where when you're dashing forward, and maybe you're always going to be in a position that maybe you're a little bit caught out. So you have to be very, very careful. But as you can see, the rest of my team is doing fine anyway. So we're all Gucci with that. So yeah, just bear that in mind. When you're dashing forward with your third ability, try and bear in mind where everyone is on the map. And then when you know where everyone is on the map, then you'll be able to know, you know, where you'll be able to go, you know, if you'll be completely stuck or not. That's basically what it is. I realized that I didn't fully maximize the screen, so you've been seeing like my webcam border this whole time as well, but it's all good. You can see all the gameplay anyway, which is the main part. So moving into right about the mid game now, moving into about 10 minutes into this game. You see my Rammus has started off Rift Herald. Again, I'm looking to try and push out the mid wave before I roam, so then the enemy team misses minions. I use the Galio ulti here onto Yasuo because I know that the Akali was looking to try and execute the Yasuo because he was a little bit isolated. So again, making sure that you position your ultimate right, make sure you ulti the right target or the right friendly champion is always very, very important. So Rammus guarantees that Rift Herald. We get the kill onto Akali, and at this point of the game, we're really, really far ahead. 21 kills to 8, 7, 2, and 4 on Galio. As you can see, there are a few little misplays that I made in this game, and something that you can learn on when playing Galio is when you're dashing forward like this, you have to be very, very careful because you might be completely caught. Another thing to note as well is that your second ability can actually be cancelled by crowd control. You can see there that my second ability went on cooldown. It's because Xin Zhao used his ultimate, which means I was knocked away, and it actually cancels the duration of your second ability. As you can see here, this chef's kiss with that combo. Oh my god, it's so good. Third ability into flash, into taunt. The Ashe ultimate comes instantly straight afterwards, and the Akali cannot move. And that's the great thing about Galio, is that when you play aggressive and when you're ahead, not only do you do a lot of burst damage, but you can also just CC enemy champions, and it's so fun. So you can see here that we're actually not attacking the dragon. This was actually really well played from us. We didn't attack the dragon because we knew that Xin Zhao was nearby, and also Rammus was dead, so we knew we had to zone away the Xin Zhao so he wouldn't go into the pit, or we just focus the Xin Zhao, kill him, and then we're guaranteed to take the dragon. So really, really important that we was able to do that. We ulted the Ashe here to give her the little bit of a magic shield, which actually keeps her alive, which means that Akali can't really do anything. You can see how annoying it is playing the likes of, you know, Akali, and Castin is another good example as well. If you're playing any of them AP assassins, then it's really, really difficult when you're playing against Galio because it basically counters all your burst damage that you want to do. So as you can see in this game, I went for Rod of Ages into Prophet's Pendant, which is a really, really good tier 2 item if you have the money for it in the early game, because it gives you that flat magic penetration, which is really, really nice. See, my burst damage is a little bit disgusting this game. Yeah, because the flat magic penetration in the early game is really, really nice. The percentage magic penetration is not really that strong in the early game because it scales well into the mid and late game, and you have to basically have champions build magic resist to make full benefit of the percentage magic penetration. So that's why most of the time you see mid laners sometimes go for Prophet's Pendant as a second item, as a tier 2 item. I somehow did enough damage there to that Akali. I don't know how. That's why you see it. You see the Prophet's Pendant, the flat magic penetration in the early game, and then you build into like Void Staff and Death Cap for the percentage magic penetration and also the high amount of burst damage. My Ashe, unfortunately, here got a little bit caught. I used my Galio ultimate a little bit too late, unfortunately. Look at this. Oh my god. Look at my burst damage, by the way. My burst damage is absolutely disgusting. We're 12, 2, and 8 now. The burst damage is absolutely crazy. I mean, this is why I love playing mid lane Galio. I play it quite a lot, and it's one of my favorite mid lane picks. I also play this pick quite a lot in the support role if I do get filled into the support role sometimes. Unfortunately, my Yasuo is a little bit caught out. I actually survived for quite a long time. I maybe could have roamed to help him, but I was very, very low on health. I mean, he's still alive this whole time. Maybe I should have helped him. Okay, Rammus is... Okay, so Yasuo died, but Rammus is still alive. Very, very interesting. But I stole the blue buff, so that can't be picked up by the enemy team. I got Scuttle Crab to get vision control, and then we're going to go towards the Death Cap. So we got Void Staff completed, we got Death Cap completed, we got Rod of Ages completed, and now we're going to go into Infinity Orb, which... Interestingly enough, the Infinity Orb does build from the Prophet's Pendant. So that means that when you're building that Prophet's Pendant as a second item, you're still going to use the item in the later stages of the game anyway. And as you can see, my wave clear is absolutely disgusting now. I'm just one-shotting melee minions, one-shotting range minions. Obviously, I can't one-shot cannon minions, but it's nearly enough. My first ability is on about 5-second cooldown as well, so I can just keep going to the side lanes. As you can see what I'm doing, just aim my first ability. As you can see, one instance of my first ability, and then one auto attack, I'm able to completely wave clear, which is really, really nice. As you can see here, again, just easily wave clear. And this is one of the great things about Galio is this wave clear. Once you have that wave clear, it's really, really nice. I go a little bit too deep here. I don't really know what I'm doing here. Okay, I didn't stay alive. That is what you call an int. That is what you call an int, but it's all part of the plan. I baited them to come to focus me so the rest of my team can do enough damage and carry me. That was all part of the plan the whole time. It really wasn't. I think I just completely inted. That was really, really bad from me. But it's fine anyway. You know, we're far ahead. That mistake is not really going to mean too much. We get the bot lane inhibitor. We get the mid lane inhibitor. And as you can see, we are going to end the game right here, right now on 13 kills, 3 deaths, and 10 assists. So as you can see, with Galio, sometimes when you dash forward, sometimes you can get a little bit caught out, so you have to be very, very careful. But overall, a very, very good game, very, very good performance from myself on Galio. We're going to be checking out the damage here as well to see how well we did. Yeah, 13, 3, and 10, 21,000 damage in total, which is pretty good, to be fair. I think it's a decent amount of damage on Galio. As you can see, some of my other teammates did more damage than me, but overall, Galio is a burst champion, and if you can't burst champions or deal a lot of damage to like squishy champions, it is a little bit difficult. But when you're against, you know, Akshan, Akali, Lucian, you know, all these burst, all these squishy champions, it's really easy to burst them down with Galio. So hopefully you enjoyed the gameplay, and hopefully you all enjoyed the guide. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe for more A to Z guide content, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.